Okay, so somebody sent me this story and told me to read it, and I almost didn't because I thought it was going to be one of those predictable things where the good girl gets hurt and then finds love and everything works out beautifully. I was wrong. I was so completely wrong because by the time I finished, I just sat there staring at my screen like, what just happened? This story makes you feel sorry for someone, genuinely sorry, and then it slowly, quietly reveals that your sympathy was being manipulated the whole time. And the worst part was that I couldn't decide who to be mad at, and I still can't. Pay attention to the details, the small ones, because they matter more than you think. Hello, family. Welcome back. Before we continue, I have a small request. Kindly subscribe. Your support is what keeps these stories alive. And in the comments, let us know where you're watching from.
Alina Ashford sat in a wheelchair outside the physical therapy clinic, watching the rain. 6 months since the accident, and she still wasn't used to the way people looked at her, or rather, looked away. Her phone buzzed. Another email from Marcus's lawyer about the engagement ring. She deleted it. You're gonna catch a cold out here. A man in worn military fatigue sat on the bench, holding the cardboard sign. Veteran, anything helps. I'm fine, Alina said. That's what everyone says right before they're not fine. Her phone buzzed again. Her mother. You need to answer Victoria's calls, Margaret said without grinning. She's been very generous considering the circumstances. Generous? Elena's hand tightened on the phone. She told Marcus I was damaged goods. Honey, you have to understand your position. The Ashfords have a certain image and Marcus needs someone who can, walk. You can say it. Her mother sighed. Maybe it's time to be realistic. That assisted living facility we discussed. Your sister's wedding is coming up and the venue isn't wheelchair accessible, so... Alina hung up. Family? The homeless man asked. Something like that. Alina wiped her eyes. I'm Daniel. Alina. You're waiting for someone? A curb. Trying to be independent. She laughed bitterly. Turns out wheelchair accessible cabs don't actually show up. Daniel looked at the rain. 6 blocks in this weather. I'm headed that direction anyway. Could walk with you? Make sure you don't roll into traffic. He said it casually, without pity, just offering. They started down the sidewalk, Daniel walking beside a wheelchair. He didn't hover or try to push without accident. Car accident, Elena said when he asked. As if he ran a red light. My fiancé broke the baby bruises. I didn't. Doctor said the paralysis is permanent. That's rough. Your sign says veteran. Yeah, my rent, 3 tours. Things fell apart when I got back. Family didn't know what to do with me. Wife left, lost everything. He smiled sadly. Here I'm here. They reached the cub. Elena navigated it smoothly. Maybe too smoothly. She got herself unsloped, gripping the wheels harder. Daniel didn't notice. What about the fiancé? Elena's jaw tightened. Ex-fiancé as of 3 weeks ago. Email broke up. Dear Elena, I need someone who... This isn't what I signed for. Best wishes, Marcus. Daniel stopped working. An email? Yeah, his mother called me crippled to my face. She said, you can build a legacy with a cripple. The actress name requires perfection. Jesus. Yeah, I saw him last week at Brazil's. Through the window. With her. Vanessa. Perfect legs. Perfect dress. Laughing at something he said. Elena's voice cracked. He looked happier than he ever looked with me. They reached their apartment. Daniel helped carry the groceries. Thank you, Alina said. You know, here's the thing about rock bottom. Daniel said. You remember who helped you when you were there? Wait. She put out her 20. He held up his hand. Keep it. You talked to me like I was human. That's what more. Daniel started to leave, then turned. Same time next week? You need someone to walk you home. Same time next week. She watched him disappear, then rode inside. The elevator was broken. She looked at the stairs, made sure no one was watching, and stood up. Her legs worked perfectly like she carried a wheelchair to the 2nd floor. Inside her apartment, Elena transferred back into the chair and rode to the window. She could see Daniel settling back onto his bench. A phone buzzed. Unknown number. Made you dinner at the shelter's kitchen. Wasn't sure if you'd eat. Mind if I drop it by? Daniel. Elena stared at the message. Something shifting in her chest. She typed back. Out like that.
If you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love you to join our community by hitting the subscribe button and turning on your notification button so you never miss topics that matter. Also, let us know in the comment section where you are watching from.
3 months changed everything and nothing at all. Eleanor sat across Daniel at a tiny folding table in her apartment, watching him type on a laptop with fierce concentration. He'd been teaching himself to code at the public library, and now he was building something that made his eyes light up when he talked about it. Been teaching himself to code at the public library, and now he was building something that made his eyes light up when he talked about it. You're staring? Daniel said without looking up, smiling. I'm admiring. Eleanor corrected. There's a difference. He glanced at her, and the warmth in his eyes made her chest tighten. I couldn't do this without you. The laptop, the interview prep, believing I could be more than. You were always more than. Eleanor interrupted. Her phone rang. Her mother's name flashed. Eleanor silenced it. That's the dead time today, Daniel noted. She wants me to come to Sunday dinner. Talk about Claire's wedding. Eleanor's jaw tightened. The venue isn't wheelchair accessible, so they're suggesting the venue isn't wheelchair accessible, so they're suggesting I just skip it. Save everyone the trouble. Before Eleanor could say more, a phone buzzed with text, 5 in rapid succession. Society page notifications with the same headline. Marcus Ashford engaged to Vanessa Stelling. Wedding of the year planned. The photos showed Marcus on one knee, Vanessa perfect hand covering a perfect mouth. The ring was enormous, bigger than the one he'd given Elena. The ring was enormous, bigger than the one he'd given Elena. The ring was enormous, bigger than the one he had given Elena. Who's that? Daniel asked, seeing her face. Marcus. He's engaged. Waiting in 6 months. Daniel reached across and took her hand. Are you okay? Her phone rang again. This time she answered. Have you seen? Her mother demanded. Just now. Elena, listen. This is good. You can move on. Victoria called. She's willing to help set you up in a very nice assisted living facility. My situation. Elena repeated flatly. Oh, look, Elena, you are just a burden now. That's the truth. Accept it. Her mother's voice sharpened. Claire says she can't even bring her friends around anymore. The wheelchair makes everyone uncomfortable. Marcus has moved her. Stop embarrassing us. Elena hung up and turned off her phone. Your family is something else, Daniel said quietly. Elena leaned onto him. Over 3 months, Daniel had become everything Marcus never was. Patient, kind, present. I got an interview, Daniel said softly. The tech startup you sent my portfolio to? They want to meet next week. Elena turned to look at him. Daniel, that's amazing. It's because of you. Everything good in my life is because of you. He knelt beside her wheelchair, taking both her hands. I know the timing's probably terrible, and I know I don't have anything to offer but myself. But Elena, I love you. I think I've loved you since that first day in the ring. Daniel, I know I'm an homeless veteran with PTSD and $40 to my name. I can give you fancy restaurants or diamond rings, but I can give you me. All of me, if you have me. Elena felt tears spilling down her cheeks. You're not broken. You're not broken. You're not broken. Neither are you. Daniel squeezed it. Neither are you. Daniel squeezed her hands. So, what do you think? Will you marry me? She should say no. She should tell him the truth. But looking at his hopeful face, Elena felt something crack open inside her chest. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I will marry you. 2 weeks later, Elena sat in the bathroom staring at 2 pink lines on a plastic stick. The night before the accident, the last time with Marcus, she counted back, her hands trembling. She had to tell Marcus. The nights before the accident, the time with Marcus, she counted back. her hands trembling. She had to tell Marcus. The call lasted 90 seconds. Marcus, I'm pregnant. And the baby's yours. Silence. Then, don't contact me again. That's not my problem. If you call again, I'll get a restraining order. Whatever that thing is, it's yours. He hung up. The next call came from Victoria herself. I am prepared to offer you $500,000. You get the abortion, sign an NDA, and disappear. No child of mine will have a cripple for a mother. I'm not getting an abortion. $500,000, Elena. Be smart. You can't raise a child from a wheelchair. $500,000, Elena. Be smart. You can't raise a child from a wheelchair. I'm keeping my baby. Victoria laughed coolly. You have 48 hours to reconsider. Elena told her mother that afternoon. Take the money, Margaret said immediately. You can't raise a child from a wheelchair. You can barely manage yourself. You're being selfish. Elena called Daniel. He showed up 20 minutes later, exhausted from his coffee shop shift. What's wrong? I am pregnant. And it's Marcus's. From before the accident, Daniel's eyes widened. Then he smiled. Daniel's eyes widened. Then he smiled. Okay. Daniel, I am pregnant with an anonymous baby. Daniel knelt in front of a wheelchair. And you're still the woman I love. If you're keeping this baby, then we are keeping this baby. Together. His family offered me $500,000 to get rid of it. What did you say? I said no. Daniel kissed her forehead. Then I'll figure it out. I'll work more shifts. We'll make it work. Then we will figure it out. I'll work more shifts. We will make it work. That night, after Daniel left for his overnight shift, Elena sat on her laptop in the darkness. Her physical therapist's words echoed. Your muscle retention is remarkable for someone immobile. Elena opened her browser and typed, Ashford Industries, securities fraud, whistleblower hotline. She'd been listening for months. Marcus had been careless about business calls around her, assuming she was too broken to pay attention. But Elena had paid attention to everything. The offshore accounts, the falsified reports, the inventors being deliberately misled, dates, bank account numbers. The apartment door opened. Daniel stumbled in, exhausted, barely able to keep his eyes open. You're still up, he mumbled. Just finishing some things, Elena said, angling the laptop away. Love you, Daniel said. Already half asleep on the couch. Love you too. Elena waited until his breathing evened out. Then she turned back to the screen, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. The browser tabs reflected in her eyes. Ashford Industries, securities fraud, whistleblower hotline.
Okay, so this chapter, I need to sit with this for a second because it did something very sneaky and I didn't even notice it was happening until it was already done. So on the surface, everything looked like a love story, right? But then, can we talk about what's happening in the background? Because while Daniel is buying a secondhand crib with his own blistered hands, working himself into exhaustion across 3 jobs, sleeping on the couch because he's too tired to make it to the bed, Elena is on her laptop at midnight researching Marcus's company. Securities fraud, offshore accounts, whistleblower hotlines. And then there's her family who sold her for $50,000. Every single person in this woman's life failed her. Every single one. And I think really that's important to remember. Hope you are following. Let's continue.
She started typing. 8 months pregnant. Elena's hands rested on her swollen belly as she stared in her phone. Marcus and Vanessa's wedding was in 3 days. The rehearsal dinner was tonight. Daniel set down the second-hand crib he'd been assembling. His hands were covered in small cuts from the rough wood. Got it for $40 at the thrift store. It's solid. I checked everything twice. It's perfect, Elena said, something twisting in her chest. Our baby's going to love it. Daniel knelt beside her and kissed her stomach. 3 more weeks. The apartment door opened. Elena's mother walked in without knocking. Claire behind her. We need to talk, Margaret said, a face pale. Victoria contacted me. She knows about the federal investigation into Marcus's company. Elena's blood went cold. What? The FBI shut up at Ashford's Industries yesterday. Fraud charges, securities violation. Margaret's hand shook. Victoria thinks you're involved. Why would I be involved? Well, Victoria paid me $50,000. Margaret said, throwing an envelope on the table. Last year, right after your accident, to convince you to be reasonable to let Marcus go. Elena stared at the envelope. You sold me out for $50,000. I was trying to help you see reality. Victoria promised me a VP position too. Claire interrupted. If I helped keep you away from Marcus, made sure you didn't cause troubles. You're my sister, and you're an embarrassment. Claire snapped. Do you know what it's like to have people pity me because my sister is in a wheelchair? Daniel moved between them and Elena. Get out. Get out, both of you. They left, but the poison stayed. Elena gasped. A sharp pain lacing through her abdomen. What's wrong? Daniel's face went white. I don't know. It's too early. Another pain. Stronger. Oh God, Daniel. Daniel, I think I'm in labor. Daniel, I think I'm in labor. The ambulance ride blood together. Elena's corridors rushing past. The ambulance ride blood together. Hospital corridors rushing past. And Elena wheeled into a delivery room. Machines beeping urgently. We need to monitor the baby, a doctor said. You're only 37 weeks. Another contraction hit. Elena screamed. Fetal heart rate dropping. A nurse called out. We need to reposition, the doctor said urgently. The baby's in distress. Miss Ashford, I need you to move onto the bed. We have to change your position immediately. I can't. Elena gasped. I can't move my legs. We will help you, but you need to try. The baby's heart rate is dropping fast. We need you on the bed now. Daniel gripping her hand, his face terrified. Elena, please, whatever you have to do for the baby. The machine screamed. The doctor's voice cut through. We're losing her. We need to move now. Mrs. Fred, you need to get on that bed or your baby is going to die. Time stopped. Elena looked at Daniel's terrified face, at the doctor's urgent eyes, at the monitor showing her baby's failing heartbeat. She stood up from the wheelchair. The room went silent, except from the beeping machines. Elena walked 3 steps to the bed and climbed on, legs working perfectly. Every person in the room stared. Miss Ashford? The doctor said slowly. You can walk? Elena couldn't look at Daniel. Yes. Your medical records say... I know what they say. The doctor snapped back into action. We'll discuss this later. Right now, we have a baby to deliver. An hour later, a cry filled the room. A perfect, healthy cry. It's a girl, the doctor announced. Elena looked down at her daughter, Marcus's daughter, and felt tears streaming. The baby had his eyes. Elena. Daniel's voice came from the corner, flat and dead. She looked up. Tears ran down his cheeks. Daniel, I can explain. How long? What? How long have you been able to walk? The room had gone quiet. Nurses pretended not to listen. 4 months? 4 months. Daniel tested the words. Since before we got engaged, you've been lying. Watching me carry you? Watching me work 3 jobs to save money for equipment you didn't need? Watching me sleep on floors because I was too tired to make it to the couch? Daniel, please, that everything was a lie. That the woman I fell in love with never existed. She did exist. I do love... Don't. Daniel held up his hand. Don't say that word. A nurse quietly escorted the others out. 3 months after the accident, Elena started, shaking. The doctor told me I'd recovered. The nerves had regenerated. I could walk again. And you didn't tell anyone. I was going to tell Marcus. I was going to surprise him. Elena's words came faster. But I overheard him. But I overheard him on the phone with his mother. He said, 2 weeks, then I'm done. Everyone will understand I tried. He was counting down the days. I was going to tell Marcus. I was going to tell Marcus. I was going to surprise him. Eleanor's words came faster. But I overheard him on the phone with his mother. He said, 2 weeks, then I'm done. Everyone will understand I tried. He was counting down the days. Danielle's face was stone. So you tested him. I stayed in the wheelchair. I wanted to see if he would stay. And he failed. You left me 3 days later with an email. Elena felt the old anger rising. It destroyed me, Daniel. He looked at me and saw garbage. So you decided to destroy him back. Elena looked at her daughter. You talked business around me like I wasn't there. Like I was furniture. Illegal deals, fraudulent reports, offshore accounts. You got careless. The FBI raided his company yesterday. He's going to prison. The FBI raided his company yesterday. He's going to prison. Good, Danielle said, and Eleanor's heart leaped. But then, he deserves that. But what about me, Elena? What did I do to deserve this? Nothing. You didn't do anything. Exactly. I gave you everything. Every penny, every hour, every piece of my heart. I walked myself into the ground for you. His tears fell faster. I thought you needed me. You were helping me. No, you were helping me. No, I was useful. That's different. Danielle's voice turned cold. You needed someone, not me. Someone who would look devoted enough that no one would suspect you were planning to destroy Marcus. That's not true. Then look me in the eyes and tell me you love me. Tell me that I wasn't just a tool. Elena opened her mouth, closed it. The words couldn't come. I needed to destroy him, she finally said. He destroyed me. So you destroyed me instead. Danielle's laugh was broken. At least Marcus was honest. He left you. But you made me love you. You made me believe I mattered when really you were using me. You do matter. Stop. Just stop talking. Danielle backed towards the door. I gave you everything. I worked 3 jobs. I slept on floors. I was going to be a father. I looked at the baby. I was going to love her like she was my own. You still can. No, because every time I look at her, I see you. And I remember the woman I loved never existed. Danielle reached the door. Where are you going? Elena's voice broke. Danielle, please. Don't leave. I need you. No, you don't. You never did. He put his hand on the handle. You needed a prop. And I was stupid enough to play the part. I'm sorry. God, Daniel, I'm so sorry. He looked at her one last time. His eyes weren't angry, just sad, infinitely sad. I thought you saw me, he said quietly. But you just saw it too. The door closed with a soft click. Elena sat in the hospital bed, her newborn daughter in her arms, her legs working perfectly beneath the blanket. She'd win. Marcus was destroyed. She had a baby. She could walk. So why did it feel like she lost everything? Daniel! She screamed. Daniel, please! But the hallway was silent. He was already gone.
Okay, I genuinely need a moment before I talk about this chapter because this one hit different. This one had me sitting in silence after I finished it, just staring at the wall like, what did I just read? The hospital scene was completely heartbreaking. Elena standing up from that wheelchair like that, walking to the bed like it was nothing. I seriously couldn't believe that part. And then Daniel manhever bever den wheelchair when that way. I was really not okay after this chapter.
The morning Marcus Ashford got arrested, Elena was feeding her daughter breakfast. She found out through the news a lot. Ashford Industries CEO, arrested on federal fraud charges, wedding altered as FBI moves in. There was a photo of Marcus in handcuffs outside the church, still in his tuxedo. His face showed the kind of shock that only belongs to people who never believed consequences apply to them. Elena set her phone face down and spooned more oatmeal into her daughter's mouth. "More," the baby said, her only word, said with absolute authority. "And more it is," Elena said. The trial lasted 4 months. 12 years, federal prison for fraud, conspiracy, tax evasion. Vanessa filed for annulment before he even posted bail. Victoria Ashford suffered a massive stroke the day the verdict came in. She collapsed at her estate. Her staff were already gone because the paychecks had stopped. She died 11 days later in a county hospital. The obituary listed no family at her bedside. Elena's mother called from a police station. "They seized everything. The 50,000, my savings. I could face charges for accepting a bribe." "I know," Elena said. "Elena, I need you to call your lawyer. Tell them I didn't know." "You told me to abort my baby for a woman who called me a cripple. You took her money to help her destroy me." Elena's voice was completely calm. "I hope your lawyer is good, Mom." She hung up. Ashford Industries was dissolved by court order. Claire called twice. Elena didn't answer. The DNA test confirmed Marcus's paternity. Elena's lawyer filed for child support from his frozen asset. The whistleblower reward from the SEC was substantial. Elena invested carefully. She named her daughter Nora. Daniel never called, never filed a police report, never told anyone what she had done. She waited for months for investigators. Nothing came. Daniel had simply absorbed everything and disappeared. His silence was the kindest and cruelest thing anyone had ever done to her. 5 years passed. Nora grew into a bright 5-year-old with Marcus's eyes and a laugh that belonged to nobody Elena could identify. One evening, Nora found photographs in a box on the closet shelf. "Mom, who's this man?" Elena looked at the photo. Daniel, sitting at a old table, laughing. Her laptop open in front of him. He looked happy, like someone who still believed the best was coming. Someone I used to know. "It looks nice." Nora studied it carefully. "Is he my daddy?" "No, baby." "Where is my daddy then?" Elena had practiced this answer for years. Nora considered this with 5-year-old gravity. "Your daddy made some bad choices, and he has to live somewhere else because of them. But you have me. Did the nice man in the picture love you?" Elena's throat tightened. "So why isn't he here then? Why don't you have friends? How come it's always just us? Why don't you have friends? And how come it's always just us?" Elena looked at the photograph. "Because Mommy made some mistakes. Big ones." "Can't you fix them?" She found him through a veteran services database. She found him through a veteran services database. Daniel Rock, residing in Millbrook, employed as a senior software developer, married, 2 children. Elena drove to Millbrook. She found herself just needed to see that it was okay. She told herself that she hadn't completely destroyed him. She found him at the park. He was pushing his stroller with one hand, holding a small boy's hand with the other. A woman navigated a wheelchair through the path, laughing at something Daniel said, genuinely still. Daniel leaned down and whispered to his wife. She laughed and reached up to touch his face. He caught her hand and held it there, his eyes closed. Elena stood frozen, watching. He did everything for his wife that he had once done for Lena, but there was something different now. It was real. It wasn't performing devotion. It wasn't being used. It was just a man who loved his wife. Elena had taken that from him once. Wore his love like a costume. A twig snapped under her foot. Daniel turned. Their eyes met across 30 feet. Elena felt her chest collapse. She waited for recognition, for anger, for something. Daniel looked at her for exactly 3 seconds. His expression didn't change. Then he turned back to his wife, tucked her blanket more carefully around her legs, and said something that made her smile. He didn't look back. Elena stood there until her legs felt unsteady, which was iconic because her legs had never actually failed her. That night, after Nora's school play, Fiona performed with complete commitment, scanning the audience until she found Elena's face and beaming. Elena clapped until her hands were, "Did you see me, Mommy? Did you see me, Mommy? Mom, did you see me?" "I saw every second. I saw every second," Elena said, holding her tight. At the car, she buckled Nora in and stood alone in the parking lot. Parents moved around her in pairs, in families, holding hands. She thought about Marcus in federal prison, about Victoria's dying alone, about her mother navigating legal consequences, about Daniel's face at the park. 3 seconds had looked at her with complete, absolute nothing. Not hatred, not pain, just the look of a man who had healed so thoroughly that she no longer registered as a wound. Daniel had looked at her and felt nothing, because feeling nothing meant that she hadn't just lost it. That was the part she couldn't survive. Daniel had looked at her and felt nothing, because feeling nothing meant she hadn't just lost him. That was the part she couldn't survive. Daniel had looked at her and felt nothing, because feeling nothing meant she hadn't just lost him. She had actually never heard him. The real Daniel had walked out of the hospital and rebuked himself without her, was now in a park holding his wife's hand with his whole heart showing on his face. Elena got in the car. "Mama, are you crying?" Nora asked. "Just go there." "No, baby, just go there." "Mommy!" "Yeah, I love you the most." Elena gripped the steering wheel. She drove home through quiet streets, her legs working perfectly on the pedals, the daughter singing in the back seat, life intact in ours and utterly, devastatingly empty in all the ways that no amount of winning could ever feel. She had destroyed Marcus completely. She had survived. She had built something from the wreckage, who had loved her with everything he had, who had walked out with nothing and said nothing to no one, who had protected her with his silence even after she'd broken him, was the only one who had walked away into something real. She had tasted love by poisoning it. He had passed by walking away, and she was left here, driving through the dark with walking legs and a full heart that had no place left to put itself, wondering if the cruelest punishment wasn't Marcus's prison or her mother's charges or Victoria's lonely death. It was this, just this, the rest of her life, intact and functional and utterly, permanently alone with a daughter who would grow up asking why her mother had no one. Elena walked to her apartment with Nora's hands in hers. She had walking legs, a healthy child, financial security, and absolute loneliness. Financial security and absolute loneliness. Daniel had loved someone broken and let himself be broken for it. She had broken someone's love on purpose and kept walking. Marcus was in hell. She was in something worse. A perfect life with no one to share it with. And there was no going back.
I've been thinking about this story since I finished it, and I keep coming back to one thing. Daniel never reported her, never filed anything, broke a hostile one, and protected her anyway with his silence. Daniel didn't win by staying silent, he just refused to become what she was. The thing about the story that gets me most is that nobody is completely innocent and nobody is completely beyond understanding, even Elena, especially Elena. That's just the truth about what happens when someone good loves someone who isn't ready to be loved properly. Real damage rarely comes from monsters, it comes from wounded people who mistake revenge for healing. And by the time they figure out the difference, the only person still standing in the wreckage is them. Bye!